The Stand podcast is brought to you by West Brewery.
Well, look about, ooh-wee.
Welcome back to the Stand podcast.
Woo.
There you go, done. Today, I'm with my usual pals. Do you want to say hi?
Hello.
In case you're listening and not watching, that's
Molly.
Lottie.
there we go.
So today we have a very special guest.
Oh.
It's Liam Farrelly. Woo!
Alright, hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm alright, how are you?
I'm good.
There you go.
Yeah. How are you?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Fraser, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm quite tired.
Mm.
We try because this is all like, I don't want to ruin the magic of podcasting, but we don't necessarily do these the week you hear them. So I've just finished Panto and I'm knackered. I've been doing that.
You
I
aren't.
bloody have, yeah. So yeah, it's been pretty intense, but good. Nice to be back in the club. It's the first day back in ages, so it's good to see you.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Hi, Liam. Thanks for coming along to chat to us.
It's all good, man. It's nice to be here.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you feel welcomed.
I feel very welcome.
Do you feel at home on this stage?
Aye, pretty much. This was the first gig I did, so this is where it all started, man. Aye.
Nice.
Wow.
When you say you, as in your first, like actual first.
Actual first.
And was
ever.
it Red Raw?
It was Red Raw, yeah.
Nice. When was that?
Red
Remember
Raw.
what year?
31st of January 2017.
Wow.
You're coming up for an anniversary then. Well,
Yeah.
I know, it's getting there.
My mum and dad's wedding anniversary is the 31st of January.
Alright, we'll all go out. Big
wow.
Can you remember like the kind of stuff that you were saying on it? Like what?
I remember the first joke because that joke pretty much lasted till I went on live at the Apollo. It was always a banker. I'd be like, all right, as you can tell by the state of my teeth, I'm for Paisley.
That is a classic.
Everybody loved that.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
And that's when they're like,
That was, so you had that from the start?
That was a day one.
That's crazy.
That's really cool.
Because you
Yeah.
still kind of do that now
I've
sometimes.
dropped it now. It
Alright,
depends. Things must be going really badly if I'm pulling that one. Right, okay.
Yeah. But then that's an interesting thing because on Live at the Apollo, you don't say Paisley, do you?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. As soon as I did a gig outside of Glasgow when I went to Edinburgh, I had to change it to Glasgow.
Because people don't know about Paisley. I guess.
Aye, so and then when you went to London, I did say Scotland at first, but then I was like, people know Glasgow,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah.
just kept Glasgow.
Yeah.
Aye.
It's quite interesting how, because I think you notice when comedians don't do that. Like they'll be on the stage here and they'll be from like, I don't know, somewhere else, and they make
Yeah.
a reference to some specific place that's near them, and the crowd just doesn't get
Tends to be at London acts talking about the tube.
Yeah,
And you're like,
yeah.
No one in Glasgow
I got
gives
off
a
at the
fuck.
Victoria line.
You don't get off at the Victoria
I
Line.
don't
That
know.
doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'm not from London.
I actually lived in London for a number of years.
Did you ever get off at the Victoria Line?
Get off Victoria Station. Actually, Victoria Line did get me to work most days when I first lived in London. This is the dullest chat of all time, so we're not going to talk
Did
about it.
you
I
ever
used
get
to-
off on the Victoria Line?
Did I get off on the Victoria Line? Fucking right, I did.
I used to sleep in the Victoria bus station.
Oh, how often?
Well, not for very long, because then I then got a membership for Genting Casino.
I've got one of them.
So what would happen is I would go down and do a gig in London, but I wouldn't have the money for accommodation. So what I would do is I would book like the first bus out of there again at like 6 o'clock in the morning, but that just meant you were stuck in London
right.
from like when the gig finished like 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So at the start I'd just go and sit in the bus station
That's
by myself.
so sad.
And then things got better, and I went and sat in a casino by myself.
Did they give you free stuff in the
Free
casino?
soft drinks, yeah.
Pretty good.
Do you have to be playing the games to get the free stuff, though?
No, it's actually, they're pretty loose with that. They will just let you kind of just hang out.
I've been to a casino, Genting Casino specifically.
We are not sponsored by the Genting Casino.
Other casino brands are available. But I've been multiple times and I've never played a game.
Yeah, they're pretty
I've never
much,
gambled at a casino.
My mum's been to Las Vegas 4 times and has never once put a bet on. I'm like, what are you doing? I think she just loves the shows. I don't know. Like,
Oh yeah, there's shows in this.
but I don't think she goes to them either. She's quite cheap, my mum. I think she just
But
like.
she goes to Las Vegas.
Well, yeah.
What a cheapskate.
Yeah, well, I see the point there. No, I went there with my mum when I was the week before my 21st birthday, so I couldn't gamble.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, and it was a special birthday for my mum as well. I'll just say she never listens to this. She's 60. Well, she was 60 at the time, and we travelled from the East Coast to America to the West Coast of America together. So we
That's
travelled east to
very
west,
cool.
and one of the places we went to was Las Vegas. And I was like, "Come on, let's go!" Like even just one pull of the one arm bandit or something. She's like, "Oh no, we're not doing that." You're so bored, and I couldn't do it lest I break the law. So I had to just like, oh,
I went to Las Vegas when I was 10.
you definitely couldn't have gambled.
But my dad, one of the nights that we were there, my dad got like really into the gambling, like dangerously. So.
What's his?
He didn't like lose loads of money, but he just was like really wanted to do it all the time. And one night, I don't remember how it like came about, but we were in the hotel room just with my mum, and I was like, "Where's Daddy?" And
she was packing the suitcase.
she was like, "Oh, he's gambling." And he just
Wow.
didn't come back to the hotel till the next morning.
What was he gambling on? What was his game of choice?
I don't. He loves penny falls here, so it can't have been something very
They
complicated.
don't do penny falls.
No, I know, but I'm not.
You
He's
don't go
not,
to the
he's not,
Bellagio and then be like, "Penny Hall."
he's not a poker guy. He doesn't know. I don't know.
Probably roulette. Roulette's the one that always
Maybe,
sucks you
yeah,
in.
yeah.
Because then you think you see patterns.
Yeah,
and there's no patterns.
He did say that he was like, when he was coming up in the lift, there was like a woman in the lift with him, and she just, an old woman, and she was like, "The machines are very cold today." Because
People
like
get so superstitious with this
yeah.
absolute nonsense.
crazy.
My husband plays poker quite a bit.
We know.
I know it's a nightmare. But he, like, I've through him and through other people, I've sort of got the idea. Whether this is true or not, but I've heard that really the only ways that actually really have an actual chance where what you do could impact how much money you may or may not win is blackjack and poker. They're like the two things you can play in a casino where you have an impact on what's happening.
Is it because but isn't the whole thing of poker like the way you're behaving? Like it's not really about the hand. It's like
well, there's a lot of. I mean, listen, he's not on because he would go on about this for hours. It's a lot to do with odds and to do with like understanding math. There's a lot of maths involved.
Right.
There's a lot of maths involved, which is why he's not very good at it because he's shit at maths.
One game of poker with Robbie,
That's my husband.
and I beat him at the game. So,
Wow, he must be raging.
yeah.
I've only played poker once and I did really, really well, but it's because I had no idea what was going on.
think
I just kept going,
beginners-
fold.
I think that helps though, because I think there's a big thing like where I think people are trying to read you, and if you have no idea, you're impossible to read
Yeah.
because you have to have intention, and if you have none, you're like, I don't know what's going on. You must be a nightmare to play against.
I think that was probably why I won, because I'm
very happy for you. Well done.
didn't know.
How
Well,
much money did you fleece him out of?
we played in blue tack blobs.
Oh.
You
I was
were
there. I played. Hang on, I was playing.
Have you done much gambling in your time?
I've done a fair bit. I've been a bit. What happens is when you sit in a casino for so long, you start to realise everybody in there is a fucking arsehole, really. Because I went and played blackjack, and like because like when you play blackjack at the casino, there's obviously other people there.
Yeah.
So then they all start getting very arsey with you. Because then you'll be like, you'll be like, right, you'll have like a 12 and you'll be like, right, hit me a card, and then you'll get like a fucking like a 7 or something, and they need a 7, and they're like, you took my 7.
Oh, as if it was like your choice.
You're like, well, what? They're like, do you know we're playing against him? We're all together in a team. And I'm like, that's no what's fucking going on. But they try and fuck with you.
Yeah. But then,
Weirdos.
some people probably just, that's all they do.
You do see that's like ludicrous amounts of money, because I'll go up with like a tenner, and then everybody else gets really annoyed with you because and you're only betting a tenner. You got the 7.
Wow.
So, do you still have to stay in the Genting casinos when you go down to London, or have things got better for you?
Things have got better now.
Delighted.
So it's all going well now. I usually get accommodation, so that's nice.
That's
so
nice.
Congratulations.
Good.
What a wonderful thing.
But
to
that
happen.
must be something that's like a big issue for being a touring comedian, or just even just like doing like gigs in other places, like having the money to do it is like a big thing.
Well, that's the thing, because you don't get paid up front.
Yeah.
So if you're going down to do a gig for 500 quid, that's great, but you've only got 50 quid to get down there to do it.
Yeah.
So that becomes a bit of an issue. But like, usually it works itself out.
Yeah.
I remember one time I accidentally booked it was like a 32 room hostel. And I walked in there, and it was like 4-story bunk beds.
Oh wow.
I walked in there, I was like, I've really fucked this. This is like shockingly bad.
Wow.
And I was walking around, and the only bit, like, you'd see all the free beds because people were nicking the pillows off of them. And I was like, I've got to go out and do my gig. And by the time I come back, everybody's going to be in bed. I'm not going to have a pillow. So
Did you
take
take a pillow with you?
Yeah.
no, I didn't even think that. I was just like, right, I'll just go to the gig and hope that I meet someone who will look after me. And just by like pure luck, there was another Scottish guy on the bill, and he'd booked an Airbnb, and it had 2 beds in it.
Oh, that's so
So he
nice.
was like,
Do you remember
"Aye,
who it was? Who the Scottish?
No, I've never seen that man again.
Oh, wow.
Aye, so I'm like,
Do you think
Maybe he wasn't real?
Yeah.
it's all just a just got drugged as soon as I entered the hostel.
Yeah. It was like like a fever dream from lack of sleep or something.
One of the first Edinburgh Fringes I ever did, I had to stay in a hostel for like the first 2 weeks of the festival. And I remember coming, because I was working all the time, I was like just sweating and having a horrible time. And I came home and it was like 2 a.m. and this guy came in who's clearly just arrived in Edinburgh, and he came into the room and this is completely true, this is not made up. In the middle of the night, he stripped himself to his pants, and then he got out a bottle of spray Dettol, and he then proceeded to spray the entire bed with Dettol, the entire thing.
Was it a bunk bed or?
It was I think it was like a bottom bunk of a bunk bed, and he
Okay.
sprayed the entire bunk bed and then himself. And I was like, I'm gonna die. This man is prepping a murder scene, and it was
Wow.
terrifying. And I genuinely texted my mum, being like, this guy's really weird. I hope I'm okay. Like, what do I do? And she was like, it'll be fine. He's probably just a clean freak. And I was like, okay, cool. Thankfully, I didn't die. But that was
He
the
maybe
last
killed
time.
someone else that night.
But I mean, I sort of think maybe that man's maybe a seasoned pro though, and knows.
Yeah, maybe.
These
Yeah.
places are disgusting. Like, you got to
Yeah.
Dettol the crap out of it.
But
But why was he Dettoling himself?
Yeah,
that's what I don't understand.
Surely it's better to keep the clothes on.
No, he just threw them
so
himself.
that-
He set fire to his clothes.
Well, bed bugs get in the clothes, so that's probably. That's, to be fair, everything you've judged this man, but I was like, everything he does there makes sense to me.
was it Liam?
I'm like, aye, I can see 100% how every decision has led to this.
Damn.
When you first said about the you booked a 32 bed hostel, is that what you said?
Aye,
I thought you meant that you booked it like
the whole room to myself.
like accidentally coming in,
See,
and then you were like, oh fuck. Which bed
That
do
would
I
have been
choose?
quite nice
Yeah.
compared to the reality of what was going on. Because there's a company, it was a hostel company in Manchester, but it was like they have 2 hostels, and one's like 8 bedrooms, and it's all quite nice. And I walked in that one, and I was like, I've got a reservation, and like you don't.
Oh, you've got a reservation in this
They're like,
shit one.
you need to go down the street. And I went down the street. I was like, oh my fucking god,
No.
what's happened here?
Oh god, that's so
crazy.
sad.
So, what made you, when you first decided you were going to do comedy? What was the lead up to you applying to do Red Raw? Like, how did that happen?
It was all kind of a bit of a whim. It was all because I was so I was leaving high school. They had sat us down to do that wee chat where they're like, what's the plan here? And there was no plan. So they were like, that's not good. You need to fucking come up with something fast. So then I got sent to like a support for learning base, and they were like, read a book. So I ended up with Kevin Bridges' autobiography. He talked about applying for Red Raw. So I was just like, fuck it, I'll do that then. And then did that, and it all kind of panned out all right.
Whoa.
Because so how long was the wait? Because sometimes people wait quite a long time to be on Red Raw.
So I applied and then forgot. So then it went to an email, and I never replied to the email. And Eva messaged us about it, I think like twice, being like, oh, here's the spots. And then being like, oh, can you reply to let me know you want this? And then she's like, right, I've given away the dates now. And then I replied, being like, oh, I'm really sorry, I forgot I even had this email address. So I mean, I'm still up for it if you've got anything else. And she was like, no, I'll just reinstate your dates. So then,
Oh, nice. So you got the same
so
ones,
literally
okay.
just straight
Yeah.
in. And then after that, I think it was like the second gig I did. The producer of Scot Squad, he was in the crowd because he used to come down like quite a bit because he lived in Glasgow. He saw me and he offered me an audition to go on Scot Squad. So
sick.
then it was like straight out of school.
Oh, straight away, yeah.
Aye, so it worked out really well.
Yeah,
So it was all.
So how old were you?
Was 17.
And that mad.
Wowee.
That's crazy.
How did you go about writing material for your first ever gig?
So I wrote an English essay. You know how you get made to fucking write reflective essays? Mine was basically reflecting on how shite the school was. And they didn't like it. If I remember really specifically, one of the fucking bits of feedback that was written on it was, this is disgusting, derogatory and cynical. I
At
was
least
like,
you got your
poster
quote.
quotes.
Yeah.
So and I was like, I think there's some good bits in here, you know. So it was basically because the first bit I was doing was about how people were shoplifting for the school, because that's something that happened. We all got banned for fucking Aldi.
Nice.
So then,
that happened to us at our school.
aye, so we
Corner shop, not Aldi,
so we couldn't go in, and then I did a whole bit about that, about it was like a guy stealing a frozen gammon steak for Farm Foods, and I was like, he's not even got time to defrost this, you know, like. So that, and then it pure evolved for that, and then there was a whole bit about counting shops and stuff like that. David was here for all of it. He'll be like, that was a good bit, but there's no, all the people I was friends with are gone.
Yes, yes.
So it happens when you get old.
Yeah, you've been here so long.
I know, I've seen so many faces.
Yeah. That's like, it's such a cool way to start. Just be like, fuck it, I'll just do it, and then it works out.
Aye, well, it was one of
That's
those.
luck, innit?
I was like,
And talent.
Well, it's like I have fuck all else to do now. So I was like, yeah, I'll just take a punt on that. And then
that's cool.
very luckily, just all worked it.
Yeah.
And what was the pipeline from starting Red Raw, Scot Squad, and then heading to Live at the Apollo?
So from Scot, from doing the first spot to Scot Squad, that was about 4 months. And
Bloody hell, it's fast.
Yeah.
Aye, so that was really quick, and then after that, it all kind of went into the usual kind of progressing through open spots and stuff like that. So you do like every gig in like Glasgow and then Edinburgh and stuff like that, and then you go from like your 5s to your 10s and then up to 15s. So I was doing all that, and then COVID happened. So then after that, then everything kind of restarted again. So it was like a weird thing where it was like, I would have been probably about a 10 spot on the weekend, but because everything had kind of went to like restart, I think I got moved to 15s opening really quickly, because they changed how they did the lineups in here. So I got moved to that, and then from there I done the Fringe with my debut show, and then that would have been my first like hour-long show. From that, the producer of Live at the Apollo came to that show, and then he was like, I want to book you for Live at the Apollo.
Wow.
So kind of worked it all right.
Yeah.
It's all been downhill since then.
How did you find that jump from doing like? Were you quite eager to get like the extra 5 minutes, the extra 10 minutes? Like, was it? Did you feel like you had more material than you were having time on stage, or?
Well, you'd feel that, so you'd be doing a 5 and you'd be like, like you would, and you'd end up kind of being like, I'm either going to have to drop this bit or run over. But then when you would get moved up to the 10s, you'd be like, right, you felt so like you'd worked for it and all that, and then you get there and you'd be like, oh fuck, like I actually have a lot more work to do here. Like I've got a good 7. So
Yeah.
I need to fucking fill the rest of this. So it was like from that, because my first 10s came really quickly after my first 5s, so I done 2 5s and immediately got moved up to 10s. And then from that I learned very quickly like, I don't have enough material, because my first 4 gigs were all at the stand. So I'd done 2 5s and then 2 10s, so I had to double the fucking material.
It's quite a lot. Like,
Aye, to go for
10 minutes is like...
Well, aye, and as well, like you don't really, it's a mad one where it's like you don't realise how long 10 minutes is until you're up here like, oh fuck, I've got to say something now. So it was mad going from that to that, and then I think everybody was like, right, we moved them too quickly, so I got moved down to 5s again, and then when done 5s, was doing really well with them, then moved doing like 10s at other gigs. Because I was saying, like, if I'd gone and done a bunch of other gigs before I got the 10s out of here, I probably would have been fine. It was just because I wasn't gigging anywhere else, and then I basically had to come in here with like totally untried and tested material, where it was like brand new, like first time saying it. So that was the big difference with it. So then I'd done every other gig around, done my 10s, so I was used to it by the time I got the 10s in here. And then it was the same with the 15s, like I've been doing 15s everywhere else, so by the time I got here again, I was used to it. So
That's good, yeah.
Do you remember your first weekend here?
my first weekend here, I think I'm trying to remember. It was I remember one of my first weekends, I think it was Edinburgh actually I got put in. And I remember it was Fern Brady was either main support. I think she was main support, because I don't think she was headlining, because I remember we were on in the same section, so that would have been back when it was like 20 spot opening, break, 10 spot, then a 25, then a break, then a headliner. So I think because I remember being on that with her. and I just got pitched that whole weekend.
Nice. Do you ever feel like, could you notice the difference between like a Glasgow crowd, Edinburgh crowd, or then like the English crowd, or
Yeah, well, going from this is a thing that I think happens to a lot of Glaswegian acts, because you do all your gigs in Glasgow and you get like, you can like easily smash like your gigs in Glasgow just by doing a lot of local stuff.
Yeah.
But as soon as you go to Edinburgh,
yeah,
it's all touristy, so none of them give a fuck. So immediately you're like, right, I don't actually have much here.
yeah,
So doing that kind of made me realise like I need to, if I want to actually go anywhere outside of Glasgow, I need to adapt here. So you learn very quickly with that. But Edinburgh and London are pretty similar in terms of their audience and stuff. So going and doing the Edinburgh stand made it a lot easier to go down to London and actually be able to do stuff down there, because London is so multicultural and you're getting so many tourists coming into Edinburgh. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah, it is interesting. Quite often, like Red Raw here, someone will do really, really well and will write an amazing, glowing report of what they've done. Yeah. And then I read the show report from Edinburgh from the same person being on, and they're like, "Oh, it didn't do well. Crowd didn't." It's like, what? They're like the best person I've ever seen, and it's just I guess it's like
it's a weird thing, but it's like, because I think that kind of does help Scottish acts, because like going from Glasgow to Edinburgh is nothing. It's like an hour on the train. So like,
but the difference in the crowd is like substantial,
and that's a really good thing to learn very early on, when it's like, right, I might be fucking Gary Glasgow, but I'm no fucking nothing in Edinburgh.
I think they say it works the other way around as well with certain like English acts, for Red Raw in particular. There's, if they come on, the crowd seem a bit more tense. Like they need, I feel like they need to work a bit harder in Glasgow than they do in Edinburgh to get people on side.
Aye, well, it's one of those ones where it's like, I feel like Red Raw is such a good gig, where it's like, a lot of times when I'm like, if you're coming up for London or England or coming up for anywhere to come and do it and it doesn't go well, I'm like, well, it's probably not for you. Like, it's one of those ones where like, the gig couldn't be better set up. Everything about it's like spot on. It's like going from Red Raws to going to do like pub gigs and stuff like that. You learn like, this is very much like everything's like spot on here. Like, you couldn't ask for a better setup. So if it's not going well at Red Raw, like, it's one of those ones where if I do a joke and it doesn't work here, then I'm like, well, it's not going to fucking work anywhere. So
it's interesting to hear.
Yeah.
And same with we were saying at the start with your opening joke, your first ever joke. Do you have to completely change your material if you're working, like doing stuff overseas?
So it depends. It depends who's booked you for stuff, because what you find is when you do a lot of gigs overseas, if you're getting booked, sometimes it's by like Scottish societies and stuff like that, because there's like expat communities and stuff like that. So if you're going over, like I've done gigs in the Middle East where it's been like a Scottish society, so they just want to hear Scottish stuff anyway, because they're so far away from Scotland, they're not hearing a lot of it, so you don't need to change it for that. But I've done gigs in like New York and stuff as well, and you do have to change stuff, but there's some stuff that is kind of universal, where it's like some jokes will work and some others will, you need to totally just drop, because you're like, well, we'll never fucking get where I'm coming from with this.
So like, obviously, like Live at the Apollo was quite a big thing in your career, but like, have you got like the next big like dream that you're like, this is what I want to happen now, or is it just take it as it comes, or what's the plan?
Take it as
what's your plan? It's not good enough. You need to have a plan.
5-year plan.
Take it it comes. I've got a big show at the Glasgow Festival in Oranmore on the 30th of October, if you want to buy tickets. But that's getting filmed and stuff, so that'll be like, that's the next big thing to get done. After that, it's just constantly, you're basically just constantly trying to write a new show and tour the old one, so getting into that rhythm and seeing where that goes. So it's constant, it never ends.
It never ends. No, is the one at Oranmore, is it the show you've already done? Or
it's the one I was doing for the Fringe, it's the Flipbook one. That's a good show.
That is a good show.
The reviews and stuff.
5 stars across the board.
We've talked a few times about heckling and heckles.
I was gonna bring this up.
Oh,
well done.
Do you want to?
No, you carry on.
We've talked about it before. We've talked about, just the three of us before, about working here and like hearing heckles and knowing that very rarely is a heckle funny.
Aye.
But can you think of any kind of like particularly good or particularly bad heckles you've had during your career?
I can think of I remember a really bad one, like really clearly, because it's still something that pure like haunts me to this day. It's really bad. There was a woman who was using a wheelchair who tried to storm the stage.
No.
Which, you know, you're like, well,
How did she?
well, the issue was I couldn't see her coming because everybody else was sat down, so
Sure.
I had no idea what was going on. Because usually when someone tries to rush the stage, you
stand up.
you see
Yeah,
a bobbing head,
Yeah, sure.
you know, you're like,
I get you.
there's definitely something coming, but like it was like a stealth attack where I couldn't see what was going on, and I could just feel like a rumbling, people being like, "Oh fuck." So, because at the time I was doing jokes about my mum having MS,
Sure.
and what would happen is people would think I was making it up. So
Right.
people,
Right, okay.
So it sounds like you're making fun of people with it.
aye,
because
what
you're
I
making
was
it up,
just
but you weren't
talking.
making it up.
I was doing jokes about how like my mum's like blind in 1.5 eyes, and she was using an electric wheelchair, so it was fucking dangerous what was going on. She hit a lot of people, and I was doing a joke about how she hit someone in Iceland and she knocked them into a freezer. And that's what sparked it off for her. Right. And and then I kept going. I was doing another joke about because she was on crutches before she was in the wheelchair. And I ran away from her when I was like a wee boy, and she threw a crutch at me. Right. So and then I was doing that, and then so that she'd already started making her way down, and I was just continuing doing the jokes. But I think she was like, "Oh, so I'm fucking, you know, I'm coming to get you, and you're not even stopping."
Oh, but you didn't know. She thought
I
you,
genuinely
right?
didn't, and then she got basically to like about 2 tables away, and by that point most of the room had stopped laughing because they were like, oh shit. And then I was like, what's going on? And everybody was just looking at me like, stop. I was like, what? And then she was like, is my life a fucking joke to you? I was like, I don't know you. And then so the guy running the gig was like, Liam, we've got a woman using a wheelchair here who's not happy about the jokes you're doing.
God.
And I was like, all right, should I stop? And I could see, and I was getting really panicked at that point because I was like, oh fuck, because this was before like cancellations were a thing and stuff. So I was like, I'm just gonna get my cunt kicked in here. And I remember it really clearly because I was like, I might just have to walk off stage here. And this fucking like massive guy in the front row just turned. It was like an older guy. He just turned to me and went, don't you worry, son, keep going. I was like, all right. So, and this is a bit where I do feel bad because she got, so they were like, you need to get out here, and she was like, no. And they just wheeled her out, and I was like, I felt bad for that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, that's a shame. But I was also like, but I don't know you, Hen.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
aye. And then I'd finished the set, somehow managed to fucking pull it back, and then after the gig, she was outside. I was like, I should go and talk to her, and I like, because I was genuinely just going to be like, I don't know you, like my mum does have MS, it's no coming for any sort of bad place, and everybody was like, don't fucking do that, Liam, she's really angry.
Yeah.
So,
Really?
aye, so I was like, right, okay, because it's one of those ones where it's like, I know I will, because it's one of those ones where I don't know where she is in some sort of diagnosis. That could have been something that happened like a week ago.
It could have like really touched the nervous.
So it's one of those ones where like felt totally like you can have any sort of reaction you want to a joke.
yeah.
It's not for me to tell you if it's right or wrong.
Yeah, and that might have come across as like she might have felt patronised if you were to go up and.
So, but she never got in contact. I've never heard anything since.
Oh my
So
God.
I think I'm fine. But heckles are never good. I've only ever seen one heckle that made me laugh, and that was in a fucking place called Stockton, and basically the guy had been booked like last minute, like someone had cancelled, and they'd be like, oh, you're in town, do you want to do this gig? And the guy was like, aye. Went on. It's just a fucking hard gig, right? And there was this arsehole in the gig who he had a rat tail. So I was immediately like, this guy's no going to be fun. And then he was pure heckling the guy, and the guy was like, couldn't really deal with it. He was just like, oh, shut up. And I was like, you need to properly put this guy down and like either bring him in and just make him like a total fool, or you just totally take him out and then leave it at that. But he wasn't doing anything with him, so it was just encouraging him. And he went, I'm not even meant to be on this gig. I done this gig as a favour. And the guy went, oh, don't give me your fucking sob story. Just get on with it, you cunt.
What makes so you're saying, like, you said Red Raw is like kind of like the perfect setup for a gig. Like, what makes a gig, like, what's an easy gig, what's a hard gig? Like, I know maybe that's a difficult thing to answer, but like
an easy gig is very much this, where it's like, so although there's a bar, the comedy is the selling point. Everybody's here for the comedy. They're not here for, like, you get comedy and 5 cocktails for 25 quid. Like, whereas, like, you are basically the sick thing in that thing, and 5 of them are cocktails. So it's gonna be a hard shift, you know. Like, but like here, where it's like everything's like, it's for the comedy. That's what you're here for, and everybody knows there's rules, and there's, if you don't follow the rules, you'll get told. Like, there's everything in place to do well here. Like, it's one of those ones where if it's not going well, it's because you're not doing something right. So. But the worst type of gig is a gig that people do not know is about to happen. So, like,
I've had that happen to me before.
Yeah, see, as a person in the gig, where you're like, I have now just sprung this on. This is a hostage situation.
I was sitting in a bar in, like, somewhere in North London. It was the Old Dairy. It doesn't really matter. And I was having dinner with, like, my partner and his sister and stuff, and we're sitting there eating a full Sunday roast. And next thing you know, they close a set of double doors, and some guy stands up and goes, "Welcome to the comedy!" And I'm like, "Oh God, no!" And we were like the only people in the room that weren't friends with the comedians, and we're just sitting there, it's like, eat your dinner as fast as you fucking
and
can.
like, obviously you're wanting to have a conversation, but then it
we
becomes
become
rude
the problem.
that you're having. Yeah,
we had
that's
no
terrible.
idea what was about to happen. I was
awful.
so like, this is the worst. We ended up just bailing. Like, the guy was mid-show, and we just, like, plates down and just left out the fire escape.
yeah.
And he was like, "Where are you going?" It's like, "We're leaving. I'm sorry."
Why do people think that's going to be a good idea? Like, why does that even happen in the first place?
There's a lot of gigs you find where the people that book them are booking them because they don't get booked in any other gigs. So that's their stage time. So it doesn't matter if it's set up terribly and stuff like that. That's probably the only time that person's going to get on stage that month.
Yeah.
So it's one of those ones. I've done gigs where it's been like 3 people in the audience, and like there's 5 comedians on, and we're all like, we should pull this, and then the guy running the show is like, no, we're doing this, and we'll all sit down the front so it doesn't feel as bad. But then you're just like, because when you're a comedian, you're doing the same set quite a lot, so it's like,
people have seen it.
It's like you're gigging with people who you've gigged with for like 2 years, and they're like, I fucking know this joke.
Like, say the punchline.
It's just like, that's just shit, mate.
The Stand podcast is brought to you by West Brewery.
How do you, like, work your set on, like, a mixed bill if the person before you hasn't done very well? Do you have to change?
It depends why they haven't done very well. It's one of those ones where it's like, if they've said something out of order and it's been very much a deserved death, you kind of do just, you either kind of make a joke out of it, or you fucking just ignore it and just go on with the stronger stuff. If it's cause something's happened in the room, you're hoping that the host, like, if somebody's fucking like collapsed or something, then you're hoping the host, either it'll go to a break or the host will fill for time and then bring you on when everything's settled down again. But it just depends. Like, it's one of those ones where it kind of needs to be a case by case basis, because so many reasons somebody could have a bad gig that is without their control, and then you've got to kind of just go on and be like, right, I'll just kind of ride this one out and then fucking try and deal with it. But there's other times that you can just take the piss at the other person if they're a dick.
I feel like I need to ask, what's the worst gig you've ever had?
It's one of those ones where the worst gigs all kind of blend into like one kind of real glob of just shite. Like, I can't even tell you anything, but it's just one of those ones where it's like, as soon as it's done, you're just like, well, I'm going home now. I've done a gig to one person.
Oh wow.
And that was cause it was one of those gigs where it was like that person was the person running it was the only stage time they were getting, so they were like, there was 2 people there, and they was like, we're doing the gig, and I was like, oh, but I don't want to. So we were doing that, and as it was going on, it became apparent that the 2 guys were not there for the gig either. They were there because that was their actual work, and they got cheap drinks.
Oh my god.
So we kind of just invaded these guys' day off.
Oh no.
And then I was being brought on, and one of the guys stood up and went to the toilet. So then today, like 10 minutes to just chatting to a guy called Paul. I think he was coming like Southend or something. He was just like, "How are you?" He was like, "Aye."
Is Paul now your biggest fan?
I've never seen that man again.
Was he in a wheelchair?
No, if he was, I would have made sure to upset him.
Oh man.
Are you like more able now to like not take those gigs? Because
Yeah, it's one of those ones where you start to because at the start you don't really value your time because you're not getting paid. Right. Like you're like, I'll go anywhere and do 10 minutes anywhere, and then when you start making money and realise this is actually a job and your fucking time is worth something, then you're like, well, no, I'm not gonna go down to fucking Brighton to do 10 minutes at the Chuckle Factory. Like, no. Why would I put myself through that? So it's one of those ones where the more you do it, the more you're like, actually, because everybody tells you like do every gig at the start because you'll learn something from it, and that is fucking bullshit, man. There is really nothing to be learned from doing a gig to one person apart from don't fucking do that again. Like it's pointless. Like there's things you can learn from like hard gigs and like corporate gigs and stuff like that. Well, like they're not that fun as gigs, but you walk away from it either with like a good amount of money in your pocket, or you've learned how to play that room for the next time. But there's other gigs where you're just like, this is pointless for everybody involved, and actually all you're doing is learning bad habits as a fucking comic.
Yeah.
I guess you couldn't really, if you're playing to one person, you can't really tell if the jokes
works.
Yeah.
There wasn't even jokes. I literally just talked to him because I was like, the only way this could be weird now is if I just start doing a monologue.
Do you know where the train station is?
No.
Oh my god.
Given the sort of job that you're in, I guess I'm assuming you're a fan of comedy, presumably. Have you got people that you're like, are your idols, like people you sort of look up to? And you ever been starstruck being on the same bill as somebody else and be like, oh crap, I can't believe I'm gigging with this person? Or
at the start, now couldn't give a fuck. It's one of those when you start gigging with so many people that you're just like, I've met anybody that I would have watched as a kid at this point, so I'm like, and they're all sound, so you're like, that's that done now. So at the start, I remember gigging with Tom Stade, because I remember watching the Meat Band that he did on McIntyre's, and I remember watching that, and I would have been about 10 at the time, and being like, that's funny. So meeting him was mental. But then because I ended up doing like tour support for Stade and shit like that, and he was driving us about in his car when I was like 18, like going to like Hull and shit like that. So as soon as you kind of go through that experience with somebody, you're like, this guy's the fucking guy, and then you're watching him eat a fucking meal deal with services, you're like, I've lost all respect for this art.
You don't have to name names, but have you ever met anyone who you might have looked up to who has then turned out to be like a
disappointment,
or like disappointing?
To be fair, there's never been anybody who I respected going into it and then been like, oh, you're a fucking dick. There's definitely been people who are like respected and stuff, and I've been like, oh, they're a dick, and then been like, I am now they are the dick.
Proven right.
So, but there's never anybody who I've been like, that person seems quite sound. Usually turns out to be quite sound.
Yeah, okay. That's good to know.
That is good.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be pretty much as they appear.
Yeah.
So that's always good, because you're like, well, I wouldn't have wanted to hang out with them anyway. So.
Yeah.
Do you find the industry as a whole to be... See, my background's in theatre, so I know a lot. I worked with actors for a long time and kind of worked with kind of that sort of troop of people, and I always find that actors can be very nice to your face but are quite backstabby as individuals, whereas my experience of comedy seems to be that comedians do tend to be it seems to be quite collegial, and people do seem to be quite friendly with each other and supportive of each other and kind of big each other up, so long as you don't step out and start taking advantage of each other. Because I'm not going to name names because we'll get in trouble, but I remember Farron Brady talking about Britain's Ellen, and like everyone knows who that is. And it's so it's interesting to sort of know, like, it seems to be quite a friendly place, or not friendly, certainly supportive environment. Like, have you found that?
Yeah, you fight, because there's obviously climbers and there's people doing fucking RBS adverts and stuff like that, and you're like, good for you. Good for you.
I wonder how close we've got to saying it.
People who want to climb over people to get somewhere, they get there and then they fuck off, so they don't stick around for very long.
Right.
So that's the thing. Like, they'll be there and they'll be annoying, but then they will.
Like you don't have to put up with them for that
Aye, they
long.
won't stay for long because they're not here to actually make a career out of this.
Yeah.
They've got greater fucking ambitions and all that. So the people that backstab and all that tend to just eventually just fuck off into their own kind of orbit and stuff. So
Yeah.
it really just means that most of the people you end up working with are really sound, and like everybody, especially when I was starting out, everybody was just trying to help me out loads
good,
and stuff. Like Fern gave me like tour support, let me do the fucking Kings and stuff with her. Stayed, took me around the whole of fucking shit pits of England and stuff. But that meant that I went into those clubs and was able to get gigs when I was starting to do the circuit and stuff. And then like everybody has always just been like really like just trying to make sure you're going where you're going. Like stuff like Janie always made sure you got stage time and stuff like that. Like everybody is pretty sound who stays about for any length of time. Because if you're a dick, kind of no one really ends up wanting to work with you. So like nobody bothers with you in the end.
Yeah. That's a good sort of like self-filtering system.
Well, that's
Like an ecosystem.
Well, we were talking on Saturday about everyone knowing that Russell Brand was a wrong-un.
Aye.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Is it still allegedly?
I think he's getting, for what I read in a newspaper, but I think he's getting, there's an investigation with the police into him.
Right.
So it's still allegedly.
But there was a joke that I had made, which I will say it wasn't bad. There was a joke that I had made which the headliner of the Saturday show had come in at the wrong time, and when I said the joke, I think he thought I was
Like being serious.
I was being serious. Where my mum had worked with Russell Brand for a show, and then she had given me 2 comp tickets, and underneath my seat was a cupcake, and then I said I couldn't remember the show, or like I made a joke about like not remembering what it was like, and then the headliner was like, "Oh my, are you okay?" Like, "Oh my god!" And then everyone else in the room suddenly was like, "Oh," like as if I was claiming like at drinks after work that I would be making this very serious accusation, which never mentioned before, never said, which didn't happen. Like honestly, I was just making a joke. And then the headliner was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I brought the tone down." And I was like, no, I think that was me. And he was like, "You should never apologize for speaking your truth." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." So I wanted to put the record straight that that was definitely a joke, but maybe an ill-timed one. You could just see it on everyone's face being like, "Oh."
You hear a lot of rumours.
yeah, like I suppose it's all rumour, so you can never say for sure. But I always hear comedians saying, "Oh, well, we all know who, blah 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 blah," but then they never confirm because everything's alleged. You can't.
I mean,
definitely
fucking
say.
tell me, I've got no seizable assets. Tell you whatever
It is always good. Like I think having like going out for drinks, particularly in the French, going out for drinks with comics that we've become friends with, and then like there's a couple of people who I would go for drinks with, and I would tell them who I found funny and blah blah, and they would be like, "Yeah, wrong," yeah, don't support them anymore. So
that's always a sad thing when you're talking to like, because like, but I was like bar staff and stuff. I've been pals with all the time and stuff, and then she'd be like, "This is my person. I really like this comic," and you're just like, "Oh,
sorry,
it's a shame."
Yeah. I wonder if like it does the comedy industry, but then also like the music industry and like, you know, whatever, anything where it's like public facing media seems to have a lot of people who are like dodgy. But actually, maybe it's true of all society. It's just it comes out easier in like.
I think so, and it's also to do with like we're changing the entire topic of this entire podcast. But I think a lot of that, in my opinion, is to do with power dynamics. It's about when people have power and the way that they abuse that power, and maybe people who would. It's within them this innate sense to kind of manipulate people, but it's when they get to a position of power
Yeah.
and realize that they can do it, that the
Yeah,
worst
like,
part of them comes out.
Maybe if
But
they'd
I-
worked in an office, it wouldn't have had a chance to come out. But because they're on stage, they've got this
They
like
have a
power
level
that
of power.
they
But
don't
if they
have
worked in an
before.
office and they became the boss,
Yes,
maybe
yes,
they
yes.
still would do those sorts of things.
But
like,
it's not in a way of like power corrupting. It's more in a way of like
you're already corrupt and the power just gave you the ability to do it.
Damn.
wrong'uns want to
That's
achieve
deep.
power so that they can get
That's-
away with their
that's why
deeds.
Liam's wanted to achieve power on
Yeah.
stage.
I have no
You and your
goals
32
left.
bed hostel.
Hey Liam, do you have any pre-show rituals?
Well done.
No, you see,
Great.
I let down my nose at a lot of that stuff. Where
Yeah.
I grow up. These people.
But do you get nervous before shows?
Not really. Like,
So maybe it's like I suppose people who
Do you have any emotions? Like, do you
Not
feel
really.
anything?
I mean, I like my wife. That's about it.
That's good.
That's good. Well
I'm a
done, well
daughter
done.
as well.
Well
My
done for
daughter's
saying
pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. Didn't mention his child.
But it's one of those ones where I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They don't laugh. I'm like, all right.
You're right. You're
I'll
right.
fucking make them laugh tomorrow. It's not a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
deal.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's why not?
Have you found fitting your career, which is essentially a predominantly evenings and weekends style job around having a family and stuff like?
Yeah, because I had a child with a different woman, so that splits the time down the middle.
Perfect.
Easy.
Is that some good advice?
That's a good tip.
So it works, it's one of those when schedules kind of meet up, so it kind of works out all right.
Cool.
So it's one of those ones where it should be difficult, but it's not really now because like my wife Tyler, she'll come with me for gigs and stuff like that. So it's like kind of works out as if I'm basically taking her on holiday, but then it's also a bit of a tax write off. So it all comes together.
So Liam, do you have any Stan memories?
A lot of them would be about going out because there was probably a period from the age of about 18 to 23 or 22 where I was a bit of a fucking barfly in here for a while. So so David, who was at my wedding, he used to work here. Iona, his girlfriend, she was at my wedding as well. They were working here. So and then even before COVID and stuff like that, me and David were always going out. What would happen was on a Tuesday, I'd come down here even if I wasn't booked, because sometimes people don't show up, so you get to jump on for a bit. So even if I didn't get on, I'd drink in here. David would wait till his shift had finished, and then he would start drinking. And then we'd drink in here until it was time to shut up, and then we'd go to Box, then we get steaming in Box, and then we'd go across to the Genting Casino. which-
Formerly mentioned.
Exactly.
Members
So
only.
connects up, Then we'd go and get drunk in there, and then we'd usually go back to David's, and I would go back to Paisley, and then go and do the gigs on the weekend, and then go back on Tuesday. So I lived like that for a while.
Yeah.
So
What a good life.
Do you have any memories of this period?
I have a few fleeting ones.
I'm just surprised you can remember anything. It sounds like you were just absolutely
So
off
a
your
lot of good. I remember there was one night, this would have been pre-COVID, where me and him got really steaming in here, and then we did stand wrestling. Well, I stood on that side of the stage. David stood on the other, and then someone shouted "Go!" We ran at each other, and then we tried to wrestle each other off the stage. Whoever got off the stage, they were the loser, and the winner remained the champion.
What's a bit like sumo wrestling?
It was.
Maybe we should have a show of
You
that.
should bring that back.
Listen, I'm up
Push
for
the
it.
chairs back.
Would you like to
a bit.
curate it? Could I have-
I'll commentate.
yeah.
I'll kill it.
I think it will have to be you and David doing it. Just
The good old days.
yeah, the original.
Yeah.
Oh,
That would be good.
There was another time where I remember we were. I don't think I was actually there for this. I just get told about it. I think this was pre-COVID as well, where there had been a time where they were shutting up and they started doing karaoke, and I think it got a bit loud. Just get told. So then the manager at the time, Doxy, had to come in.
This was post-COVID.
This is post-COVID.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not grassing on
I mean,
anybody
no, I
here.
don't. I don't know about either.
I know nothing. This is just a story of a story, I hope. and somebody was on stage mid-song belting it out. Doxy came flying in and they were a bit pushed, and they were like, "Hey, Doxy!" And he just went, "Get out!"
Oh my god!
So,
It was also quite late, potentially early.
I was gonna say
within
verging on early.
licensing hours, I believe. There's been plenty of times. There's the other time where I got myself in trouble at box. Were you there for that one?
I was there for that. We were leaving box. I think it was maybe.
It
It was like closing
It would
time.
have been like 4 a.m.
So we were standing outside waiting for you. But so from our perspective, we were just waiting outside, and then Liam comes like sprinting out, like, oh my god, because what had happened was,
So, me and this tech Sean, who's laughing back there, we were out with David and Iona and all that. I think my wife, before she was even my girlfriend, was there, and David had gone to the toilet, and they'd gone to the toilet, and then me and Sean were at the bar, and then we were walking like from the back of there's like a back bar and a front bar, so we were walking from one to the other to leave, and then there was a man, because David's got long black curly hair, and I saw a man at the bar with long black curly hair, and I don't know why I decided to do this, because I've never done this to David. But I was like, I'll run up to him and slap his arse. I'm a little bit. He'll turn round and Sean will be behind me, and I'll be like, "Sean, what you doing slapping arses here?" He's crazy. So I went over and I slapped that man's arse. Turned round, wasn't David. But I had not realised this, because I was turned round to see to be like, Sean is not there. So then I turned back around, see it's not David, and I was like, oh fuck, this is a crime. So then I was like, you look a lot like my friend. And he went, I am your friend. And I went, cool. And then
Oh no!
I ran from the building. What makes it all worse is it turns out that I do have some sort of connection to this man. Turns out that is the man who David's ex-girlfriend cheated on him with.
It's a small world.
Which I think, if anything, gets me off the hook a bit, because clearly that girl has a type.
it was so funny because you like couldn't talk for like ages. You're like whoa. Couldn't explain what had just happened.
Well, I made it because it was difficult as well, because Tyler was there, and I was obviously trying to put some moves on her, and that happened, and I was like, oh no, because everybody was coming out and getting told the story of what had gone on, and people were just like, what are you doing? You do get used to dealing with a lot of like mental people just by doing it. Do you remember? Were you in the night? I was hosting Red Raw, and that guy.
Oh, what?
Sean remembers.
So there was a guy called. Obviously, at the stand, you can't vet people's material before they go on stage. So when you're bringing someone up, if they've never gigged before, you literally have no idea what is going to be said. So I'd set up a nice room. I think I'd done a good job. Sean, you were there. Sean,
thumbs up from Sean.
Thumbs up
good
from Sean.
job. Got good feedback that night. So I'd set up nice. He couldn't really fuck it up. I brought on, and I'd then gone backstage to talk to the next guy, because never gigged before, and the guy on after him had never gigged before. So I was just being like, right, if he does well, I'll just bring it straight on. If he doesn't, I'll need to do a minute just to get the room back for you. Then I'll bring you on. I'll just explain to him how it works. And while I'm talking to him, I'm like, that is like dead silent out there. And I was like, what? I was like, maybe the fucking microphone is broken or something. So I look at, and he's talking away, but there is visible anger from the crowd.
Oh my god!
Like,
I don't think I was there.
they were very, very annoyed. And I was like, what the fuck is he saying? And that's when I properly started tuning in. So basically, the whole set was basically confessing that he is a nonce.
My God.
Aye, and like nobody's laughing. Everybody's just like, what the fuck is going on? And like and like he's talking about like TV shows he's watching, like, and you're like, what the fuck is this man saying? And then he was talking a bit about about the TV show Cuties, which was like about children's beauty pageants, and this is the only joke I remember because I remember having to come on stage after it, and he was like, and they said they should have used adult actresses in that role to play the children, but I don't know what everybody's complaining about because I still managed to have a wank anyway. And the whole crowd were like, oh, and then I had to fucking walk back on. And the worst part about it was the boy tried to shake my hand, and I was like, well, I know what it's been. No.
That's so gross.
So I was like, and that's one of the ones where like that's someone who has fucked a fucking room, and I've now got to, I'm the host of that who now has to deal with it. So I basically just had to, I just stood on stage for a good minute, just like, oh.
But also, like, I do think with Red Raw, the percentage of pedo jokes is like
It's high.
very high.
Yeah.
For people doing comedy for the first time, they think this is what I'm going to do jokes about.
I think it comes down to is a lot of it is obviously shock humour,
Yes.
but there is a thing of that where that is almost a defence mechanism for like newer comics, because you're like, well, if I don't get a laugh, I'll get some sort of reaction.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is better than nothing.
Than
There is-
silence,
like standing on a stage with a room full of people just staring at you, being like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Is brutal.
Yeah.
So at that point in your career, you'll just try to get anything from the room.
Yeah, and so I suppose pedos are an easy thing to go
Do you think also with that kind of thing, with new material and like dark humor, do you think the crowd can like sense where like they're laughing because they know that's where the punchline is, rather than it being funny? Or
It depends. With certain new material stuff, you'll do it once and then it'll never work again because you had so much kind of like, you felt so strong about it going into it that you made it work rather than it standing on its own feet and working.
Right, yeah.
So there's stuff like that goes on. But as well, like sometimes a joke will work and then it won't work, but then you'll get it working again, and it's because you've not fine-tuned it. But it's like the first time you told the joke, the crowd could see where it was going and saw kind of like, thought it was like a funny idea, and then the next time you've done it, you've not set it up in the right way.
Right.
So the idea is not as clear, and then it's like just doing it over and over again, you finally get it, where it's like just like the least amount of words and the easiest to understand. So then suddenly it's like, all right, that's obviously what the joke is. But it just takes time. You just need to figure it out.
Yeah.
You ever like so obviously you've done a bit of comparing as well. Do you like comparing something you enjoy doing?
I like it in Glasgow. I think it's the easiest place to do it, just because you know so much about the places. Because I've done it, like I remember doing it in Birmingham, and they were and I was talking to a guy who was working on something. He was working on that. It's like Birmingham to London.
Oh, the
train.
HS2 thing.
HS2.
Aye, so he was like, I'm working in HS2. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck that is.
Yeah.
And everybody in the room was like, oh, boo, boo. And I'm like, oh, aye, cunt.
Yeah, that
So-
must be hard actually.
Aye, so it's harder when it's not a city you know much
Yeah.
about, just because there's
Yeah.
so much local stuff that will go on
Yeah.
that it makes it hard to know what's going on. But you figure out tricks and stuff to make it work. But it is fun because you kind of just get to fuck about.
Yeah.
And then if you need to, you've got the material there. If you need to fucking sort them out or
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
It's quite nice that you still get to do Red Raw, like in a sort of from a different standpoint, from
Yeah.
being 17, never done it before, and then coming in headlining or comparing or whatever. Like,
yeah.
still like, do you still enjoy that as a gig?
Yeah, I think it's one of the best gigs, man. It's one of those ones where it's like, there doesn't feel like, when I was starting out, there felt like a lot of pressure on it, because obviously you're trying to get more gigs and you're trying to get booked. But now coming in, it's just like, right, I want to see if this works, or I'm trying to polish something to put it on TV or use it as a clip or something like that. So now coming in, it's like a lot kind of nicer. But even at that, when I was doing it, it was always like a welcoming gig, and it always was nice. And as well, like there was always loads of people on that you respected and stuff, because you always kind of knew the compere, and you would usually know the headliner, because it was mainly people on the Scottish circuit.
Yeah.
So like you would know everybody, and like you could ask like the headliner to, because there was times like Nelson and Forbes and stuff were like on, and I'd be like, oh, can you watch this bit and tell me if you think there's anything there and stuff like that. So like having that there was always like really good.
Yeah.
And even now you can still do that. Like you can be like, just say to somebody to watch something and be like, what do you think of that? And then get an opinion on it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good, yeah.
I always think it's quite nice when you get kind of more established comics come in and doing that, like just like kind of jumping on for 5 or 10 minutes to try like a new bit. It's quite kind of cool for the audience as well to sort of see like a bit of a surprise, like, oh, like that's somebody and they're just doing something new. It's quite it's quite a unique environment, I suppose. You don't really get that anywhere else.
Yeah, it's one of the best gigs. I think it's always been brilliant.
You ever done like a Red Raw or something and seen someone's like kind of first early time and just known straight away that they? Because I remember talking to Susan Morrison about this, and she was there for one of Kevin's first gigs, certainly through in Edinburgh. So it was funny because his dad came and picked him up after the gig or something. But like, and she said that they all just knew that he was just like, I mean, he was going to make it. He was going to do well. Like he had the ability to kind of do this job really well. Have you ever like seen someone and gone, this person's just going to, there's something in this?
Yeah, but I've usually been wrong. It's been a lot of times where I've been like, that person's got it, and then basically they stop gigging within 2 years. It's one of those ones where like, there's a lot of people where you're like, they have the raw tools to go and do it, where you're like, right, that person, if they get their fucking head screwed on, could easily fucking make this work. It all just comes down to like commitment, like, because when I started I was 17, so I had no fucking responsibilities, so like I could just go down to like Manchester and Liverpool and sleep in a fucking casino, like if there was no one, I had no bills to pay and no one to answer to, whereas like if I was to do that now, I've got a kid, I've got a wife, I've got, it's like I couldn't go at it in the same way. So there needs to be like a pure crossover in terms of ability and like situation, where like if both of them just meet at the right point, then like you can just see somebody just go like through the roof. But it's always it's a hard one to watch as well when you're like, that person could really go for it, but like you just sort of like, and you're like, well, they can't gig to the same extent that they really need to do and stuff like that. So there's always obstacles in people's way, but if they're that good, they'll find a way to overcome it and stuff.
You do find that a lot of people, for like maybe doing a couple of Red Raws is all they needed. Like some people like want to have a go at it. It's like, I did it was fine, I had my chance, and like even if they were good, they're like, that's all I wanted was just to have a shot at it. And other people who maybe don't recognize the job part of it, I think a lot of people just assume that like
it's just it's
just funny and whatever. It's like, no, it is a job and you have to work, and it has to be, like it's a craft that you have to really kind of stick to. I think some people who maybe would be good at it just don't have that work ethic, and that's the problem.
Yeah, they'll come because there is a hang sometimes where you do see someone with the ability but they lack the professionalism almost, but it's like you start seeing them. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a drink after a gig, I always think, but when you start seeing people drinking before it and like fucking smoking joints and shit like that, where you're a bit like, right, you're not a fucking rock star, like you're going up there and fucking telling a story about Paisley or something, like it's no like that mad, like, so it becomes a kind of thing like that where you do see people kind of sabotage themselves with how they want to act because they're trying to live out some sort of fucking rock star fantasy. You're just a bit like, it's a job, you turn up, you do it, and you can go out for a drink afterwards, but at the end of the day it is a fucking job.
What kind of stuff makes you laugh? What do you find funny?
It's the more you do, and you'll know this as well, the more you watch stand up, it tends to be the weirder stuff.
Definitely.
As soon as it starts to, you do like see any stand up for any length of time, you appreciate the joke writing and stuff, but it takes something, you need to take an amazing joke to properly make you laugh. But when it's like weirder stuff and like avant-garde stuff, you're like, well, I'll watch that just because it's you're so used to seeing something like usual stand-up that the different stuff's what kind of piques your interest and stuff like that. So you watch a lot of weird stuff, I remember when I started, it was a weekend I was doing the 10. There was like these two guys who they were called Vikings.
Oh my god!
Have you seen Vikings?
They'd had a Fringe show at the stand one year.
Ah, right.
Like years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my god. They were so good.
Sure. I didn't know this at the time,
them.
but one of them is the son of Ian Hislop.
What? Oh, wow.
Aye. So I didn't know this till like ages later, and I seen him on like Twitter and like something like Ian Hislop had retweeted it being like, proud of my son. And I was like, oh, they do look alike. Aye, but it was like they used to do this bit where it was like the whole act was they pretended they were like, can't remember if it was like Icelandic or Norwegian rock band. And they would come and they were like, honestly, it was just so funny, and like they had the like Norwegian accents and stuff like that. Everything about it was just like so funny. I remember that really well, just because it was like so different, and like I've never seen anything like that since. And
Yeah.
I always remember watching them and being like, "Oh, they're class." But that's the start. Like the more you do it, the more you're like, "I want to see two posh English guys pretend to be Norwegian dog stars."
If the Olympics was like jury service, and you got a letter and you would just like pull, it was kind of like name out of a hat type thing.
Every 4 years.
Every 4 years. What sport would you be quietly confident in, and what sport would you think, I'm going to die?
I don't want to interrupt you. It's a great question, but there's something that which I thought about the other day when you mentioned this question that I think is a bit of clarity that I didn't understand.
Oh yeah,
which
you
is
have
that
4 years to train.
everyone else is in the same situation. It's not that you're then
Oh.
competing
You're not
against
competing
other
against
Olympic level. It's like
professionals,
everyone at the Olympics is someone just having a go. It's not
Sorry.
that it's just you against a bunch of Olympians.
'Cause it's
That's an
like-
important
Yeah,
distinction.
it's jury service.
It's everyone there is on jury service.
I would go shooting.
Ooh.
Shooting is what I would want,
Ah.
because I feel like if everybody else, I mean, you're going to be up against it with the American, obviously. Russian's going to do well. But, you know, a wild card in there.
Yeah. Because all it is aiming. Like.
I think probably like a couple of pints before. And you'd be in a sweet
Went like
spot.
that.
You'd be having a laugh with it. And you'd have fun.
Yeah.
I think
It is like when like darts players are really good when they've had a
Yeah,
few pints. So it's probably
that's
the same thing.
It's one of those ones where I always feel the gig you don't care about is always the gig that goes the
Exactly.
best. So you just be walking in there having a laugh.
I can do this.
Shock everybody.
And what about the worst?
The worst, I don't know, like pole vaulting or
Yeah, I was
something.
gonna say pole
He's
vaulting,
Are
anything
you
with it.
serious? It's going to have to be some sort of marathon.
No, but pole vaulting's like, how do you even do that?
Yeah.
I could just hang on to the stick.
Yeah, but what?
Just hold on. Just hold on and hope your giant wang doesn't hit anything. That's my whole life, baby.
Oh
feel
my
like
God.
it's difficult because you watch it and sometimes it snaps.
Exactly.
Then what if
Or
you?
the dick gets caught on the thing.
Aye, and then everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh no.
No,
If-
stop talking about my giant wang.
If I did pole vaulting and the pole snapped, I think I'd have to go into hiding. I would be so upset with myself.
I think I would like die of shock
It's
on the way
it's-
down.
It's the fear of impaling for me.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I'd be like,
yeah.
well, no.
No.
Get
Yeah.
veiled
No.
as a vampire in front of everyone.
Is that you? That's the
That's my
secret,
biggest
being
fear.
How
revealed.
would that specifically? Because everyone dies when they get impaled. This was not only vampires. Like,
Well,
Maybe you die in a
then-
special way. If you're a
Exactly.
vampire.
Then no one knows. Like, was he a vampire? Was he a normal guy? We don't know.
we just don't know. We just
We
don't
like
know.
watch this back and he's not in.
Just a microphone floating.
I feel like people. It's one of those ones as well where you're up against other people. So
Yeah.
what if they fucking like sabotage?
Ooh.
That's
I didn't
cheating,
even
though.
think-
You can't account for people cheating.
You can't be
People
worried
that
about.
cheated in the Olympics.
You-
Lance Armstrong.
But you
Exclusive. Exclusive.
you can't be worried about sabotage for pole vault and not the shooting. That's crazy.
I've had a couple of pints at the shoot.
That's fair.
Do you have anything you want to plug or?
Just the Glasgow Comedy Festival show on the 30th of March. Buy your tickets. It's been recorded.
Nice.
And that's the Ormore.
Or more. Not this venue, so we'll see if this makes the fucking edit.
We'll make sure it makes it. There you go.
Like beep it out.
But it'll be all the links and stuff will be my social medias, so get your tickets then.
Nice.
And your social media is.
Liam Farrelly Comedy.
We'll put it in the description below.
There you go.
I don't know if we've got a description below. but
Who knows what we
I
have?
don't know where we're putting this.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
It
I hope
was
you
nice
had a
to
good
be
time.
here. It was lovely, thank you very much.
Oh, wow.
I look
had a good
forward
time
to
too.
returning.
Yes.
You're welcome back anytime.
You'll be the first,
second guest.
yeah.
There you go.
Season-
To me every time Martin Nelson gets hungover.
Thanks. Thank you,
Thanks.
Sean.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Sean.
Danke, Sean.
Yeah.
That's good.
The Stan podcast is brought to you by West Brewery.